glazed blueberry swim buttermilk biscuits were so delicious, and y'all, they are so easy and simple to make. One thing I love about this recipe, it doesn't require many ingredients. Here's how I made it. To a pan, I added in 1.5 cups of blueberries along with 1/3 cup of sugar and water. I also added in a little vanilla extract, and I let that cook down a bit for about 2 to 3 minutes before adding in a cornstarch slur. Let that cook down for about 5 minutes over low heat until my blueberries softened. It should look like this when done. To a large mixing bowl, I added in 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I then added in 3 teaspoons of baking powder along with 1/3 cup of sugar. Next, I added in 1 teaspoon of salt, and I gave that a nice mix until all of my ingredients were fully combined. It's best to use a whisk to do this. Next, I added in 2 cups of buttermilk. I then used a small spatula to mix my ingredients, but I was careful to not overmix. We don't want our dough to get too soggy. Last but not least, I added in my blueberry puree. You can add as much or as little as you'll like. I like extra blueberries, so I added more to mine. I then gave that a nice mix until fully combined. Also, if you don't want a puree, you can also just add blueberries to the mixture instead of making a puree. That's totally fine, and they'll be just as good. Next, I melted 1 stick of butter and I added it to an oven-safe dish. I then poured my blueberry biscuit dough in, and I want to make sure I scrape the bowls because no biscuit dough left behind. I like to use a 9x13 baking dish for this recipe, but use whatever you have. It doesn't matter. I then used my spatula to make sure it was evenly spread. Next, I used a small knife to cut through my biscuit dough. I started by cutting them into squares. I cut mine into 4, so it'll make about 8 biscuits. You can cut them smaller if you'd like. Remember, this is my recipe, and this is how I make my blueberry swim butter biscuits. We all might make them different, and that's okay. I let it bake in the oven on 450 for about 25 minutes. While my biscuits were baking in the oven, I started on my icing glaze. I like to use lots of white powdered sugar. This is probably about 1.5 to 2 cups of sugar, 2 tablespoons of milk, and a tiny bit of vanilla extract. If you want it thicker, just add more sugar. After about 25 to 27 minutes of baking, this is how my biscuits came out, and they look absolutely amazing. I let them cool down on my stovetop for about 5 minutes before adding my glaze on top. The glaze is 100% optional. You can eat them without or with. It depends on how sweet you like your biscuits. This recipe serves about 8 to 10 people if you want to share. You might not want to share once you get a taste of this. Also, if you're a blueberry lover, you're definitely going to love this recipe. Please let me know in the comments if you give this a try. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.